For more analysis, joining me now is Dr. Krishnamurthy V Subramanian. He is an Executive Director at the International Monetary Fund. Mr. Subramanian, welcome to WION World is One.
My pleasure.
My first question, the interim budget was largely in line with expectations. Tax slabs unchanged, sticking to fiscal prudence before the bigger budget in July. The capex target, of course, made headlines. My first question to you, sir, how does the IMF view India's growth ambition?
Let me first respond to the budget, give you my big picture take, and then I'll take that question. My description of this budget, I would give it in 3 words. Firstly, it is judicious. Second, it is non-populist. And third, it is visionary. So JNV, judicious on the fiscal front, with the kind of fiscal consolidation that has been promised, which in my opinion is already is conservative, and I think the actual fiscal consolidation will be even stronger. It is non-populist because the measures that had been taken earlier, much of the same has been repeated, no big bang populist measures. And it's visionary given the capex push, 11% increase in capex over and above the 35% plus increase in the last year, together with the 1 lakh crore 50-year interest-free loans for innovation and R&D. I think that is extremely important. You would recall in the 2020-21 economic survey, we had written a chapter showing, what are the aspects on innovation that India needs to improve. For the first time, India entered the top 50 countries on innovation. If India has to be a top economy, we have to actually mark up in the top 10 innovative countries, and I think this will push that. Now, from the perspective of IMF, one of the aspects that from the vantage point that I occupy, actually get to see always, is that among all the large economies, India by far is the bellwether for growth now. At 7.2% growth last year, 7.3% growth expected this year, and in the coming year as well, 7% growth. I think clearly India remains a bellwether for economic growth in the global economy at a time when the global economy is struggling to grow at 2 or 2.5%. I think India growing at 7% plus, I think with very strong macro fundamentals is absolutely, acknowledged by the fund. Everybody, my board colleagues and the staff acknowledge that. The other aspect that I think remains salient and which many of the people at the fund really acknowledge is the public digital infrastructure that India has created, which provides a scope for inclusive growth in the Indian context. There was recently an IMF paper that covered this aspect at great depth as well.
So some of the things you said, India being a bellwether for growth, another interesting fact that you mentioned, JNV. In fact, even the finance minister redefined GDP to stand for governance, development and performance. So given that, according to you, what are the key factors that will contribute to achieving India's $5 trillion economy goal?
So if we grow at 7% plus, my estimation is that in the next 2-3 years, we should be able to achieve that target of a $5 trillion economy. And as we all know, economic growth comes from productivity improvements and from investments. The impetus that's been provided to investment, especially capital expenditure, as I was mentioning, an 11.1% increase, in the coming year. Along with that, the significant outlay for innovation, that 1 lakh crore that I mentioned. Third dimension, which I think is as noteworthy, is the incentives that have been provided for states to ramp up their capital expenditures. If you look at the last year's provision of 1.3 lakh crores of zero interest loans to states for capital expenditure, of that 98 lakh crore has already been taken up by the states and has been invested, which amounts to a 47%, which is a very large increase in capex this year. So doubling down on that, the finance minister has announced a significant increase, 75,000 crores to states of a zero interest loan financing, and some provision for similar loans for developing tourism, all of which actually will have significant impact on productivity and investments, thereby fostering growth.
My final question to you, sir, how can international collaboration and support contribute to India's growth aspirations?
So I think one aspect that I actually particularly want to highlight is that, I'd written about this when I was the chief economic advisor. My successor has also written about it, is the, sovereign credit rating. The sovereign credit rating that India has is absolutely not justified by fundamentals. We had provided a plethora of evidence, in that 2020-21 economic survey chapter, which was titled, "Does India's credit rating reflect its fundamentals?" No, with an exclamation mark. And we provided, a myriad of evidence along those lines. I think, given the fiscal consolidation path, and I actually may dare say that the actual fiscal consolidation path will be even better than what has been promised, because, if you take the 5.8% that has been mentioned for this year compared to the budget estimate of 5.9%, actual fiscal deficit is likely to be less than that, because revenue growth that has been taken is about 10.5, slightly more than 10.5%, when actual run rate on that is in excess of 14%. Also, coming year, the 5.1% projection is again on very conservative assumptions. If the numbers remain what they are now during the full budget as well, then even for that too, the fiscal deficit number will be lower than 5.1%. So I think the rating agencies need to really reflect on their model, and they need to really reflect the fact that rating is finally about the likelihood of repayment and the willingness to repay, on both of which India remains gold standard. So rating agencies need to look at, and I think really correct their really flawed methodology.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks for your insights and for joining us on WION at this hour.
My pleasure.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.